From the BBC World Service, in association with ABC and All India Radio, this is Stumped.
Hello and welcome to Stumped, your intercontinental hit of news, features and debate from the quirky world of cricket. I'm Alison Mitchell in Melbourne, and this week I have been exploring a little bit about where the Ashes actually originate from. And I mean the actual Ashes, the tiny little urn. And I've been out in country Victoria, up to the old country mansion where the England captain in 1882, Ivo Bligh, was presented with that little terracotta urn for the very first time. And it is a magnificent mansion with lots of original features still. And you can tell that it comes from a very colonial era. The Clark family, who owned it, one of the wealthiest, most powerful families in Victoria at that time. So there you go. I didn't know you were going to start with a history lesson, Jim and Charu, first up.
And it's typical of the old country. They stole that thing because they've never given it back. Never given it back. It's sitting in a museum at Lord's. Even when Australia wins it, we can't get our hands on the real deal. It's Jim Maxwell sitting raving on about something we're all excited about because next week we might actually be talking about a game of cricket instead of all the sideshows that we've been putting up with. But it's a bit of a damp squib up there in Brisbane. Hasn't stopped raining. And the boys are out there in their budgie smugglers and the surf boat more than on the field practicing for the series. So hopefully we get some drier weather.
Hi, everybody. This is Charu Sharma for All India Radio. And listen, Jim, don't start me off. If you think the urn that belongs to Australia is in England, I can't even begin to talk about everything that belongs to India that's in England. But that's for another day, the history lesson. Okay, I've just come back from the forever beautiful district of Coorg, where our coffee is being picked. The picking season started. I drove back just in time for Stumped. That's how it is. Never want to miss a show. And of course, just a short while ago in India, Test cricket got a huge fillip because of that magnificent draw against the Kiwis, which of course brings a lot of attention to the next test between New Zealand and India at Mumbai. So we'll wait for that one.
Isn't it fantastic when a drawn test match brings so much excitement and gets so much attention? That is what test cricket is all about, isn't it? Well, it's just days until the first men's test match in the Ashes gets underway, as Jim alluded to. And we will this week be looking ahead to some of those key matchups and just where the series might be won or lost. But to start with, we are joined by our special guest this week. It is a former Pakistan captain who is currently serving as chair of the Pakistan Cricket Board. Now, Ramiz Raja won the World Cup in 1992 with Pakistan, played throughout the 80s and 90s. Since retiring from the game, he became a commentator travelling the world, and he's commentated with us indeed. And Jim, and you and I were with him not too long ago when Pakistan toured Australia. So we extend a very warm welcome to Stumped to Ramiz Raja.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ali. And hello, Charu and James. So nice to be in company of very, very important people and a lady.
I don't know about that. I was going to say, Ramiz, it was only a couple of years ago that Jim and I were commentating with you in Australia on the Pakistan series. What made you, was it such a bad experience that you thought, I can't commentate with these people anymore, I have to go and be chair of the Pakistan Cricket Board?
See, so what happened was that, the PM, obviously, our childhood hero, Mr. Imran Khan, this was about 6 months back. So he invited us over for a dinner. And so we got talking about the game. He said, look, I need a new name for the chair of PCB. And I was giving him 10 names, after every 10 minutes. And then this process continued for about good 3 months. So I was trying to avoid the accident. He was assessing every individual as if he was captain of a cricket team. So, he's temperamentally not strong. His body language is not great. He will sit on the fence. He won't take decisions and all that. And so suddenly popped up the question, and I just couldn't refuse. And so later on, when I went for an official meeting, I said, thank you for giving me the job, but you realize that there is no money as being the chairman of the cricket board. He says, what? There's no money? He says, so how will you manage that? I said, I don't know. You asked me to do it, so I'm doing it for free. And so interestingly, just now, last week during the ICC meetings, all the chairman of the board took me out and paid for my bill because they said you can't afford anything, mate. So, the bill is on us.
It's been an eventful first few months in the job for you, hasn't it? And if I just take you back to only a few months ago when New Zealand and then England pulled out of their tours of Pakistan. Have you learned any more about the circumstances since then? And how do you feel about that now?
So we get a call saying that New Zealand are going back home. I said, what? He says, yeah, there's been a threat. And we try to reason with them. And obviously, it didn't work. And they pulled out. And then England spooked. So I was told by the chairman, the ex-chairman, that, we're very sorry, but, it's not possible for the players to come because after seeing New Zealand pull out, the players don't feel comfortable. So, I was hit by a massive avalanche. I actually felt, being a cricketer, that, this is just, there wasn't any cricketing reasons and there wasn't any security reason. And that what we had delivered as far as England was concerned in COVID times, we'd send our team. So I used that phrase that, we were used and binned. The cricket fraternity should have come to our help. And so I wrote a very emotional letter to the chairman of ICC as well. You've got to be emotionally invested in a country's progress and in country's cricket, and you cannot divorce yourself from such issues. So it was quite messy. But in the end, I thought both New Zealand and England were very gracious. The way they came back must not have been easy for ECB to come and pay a visit, because I was emotional.
Tom Harrison, wasn't it, the CEO?
Yes, he apologized, and which was extremely gracious of England really to do that. And so I think England then realized that they'd probably made a mistake, and it was a knee-jerk reaction more than anything. And now we have this is going to be our heavyweight summer, by the way, or winter, because we now look after West Indies in 10 days' time, and then we have the PSL. Then we have Australia playing 3 test matches in few one days. And then in the winter time, we have England, and then New Zealand and the World Cup. So a lot to look forward to.
I know at the time you made a fairly sort of pointed comment about sort of Western bloc mentality. Do you still worry about that going forwards, and particularly with Australia due to tour Pakistan? Do you believe that will go ahead?
You see, some of the teams that are positioned here in subcontinent, away from England, away from Australia and New Zealand, because they live in another world, we face difficulties of different magnitude. You've got to understand the culture, the passion that subcontinent fans have for cricket. About the bloc, I just feel that, our situation is scrutinized more when it comes to touring. We've been scrutinized a lot more than other cricketing nations, and we've done our best really to convince the world that, look, it was a horrific incident that took place about 10, 15 years back, or whenever it was. And so we've learned from that experience, and has a rich history, legacy. You saw what happened during this T20 World Cup, where the entire nation was behind Pakistan as a sport. And so I just feel that, you've got to invest just a little bit more in our pains, in what we have done really to make sure that the product is in safe hands, and that, it's a wonderful country to travel. And I just feel that at times that message doesn't get across.
Speaking of the T20 World Cup, on a happy note, that was an incredible run that the team had. What do you think they're going to need to just go that one step further to get over the line and win another trophy?
Yeah, I had a fabulous debrief by Matthew Hayden, and he praised Pakistan for what they produced, and he was impressed by the spirituality as well. But one thing, this team crumbles just a little bit under pressure in the fielding department. Some nations have worked extremely hard on getting their teams fit, and Pakistan is about 6 months away from getting their target. But I think this was a great fillip. This really was what we needed. I told Babar Azam also that, you need to engage fans, and you've got to create expectations. It's in our DNA to be aggressive, to be entertaining, to be different. You see, right now, we don't have a bowling coach, we don't have a batting coach, and I'm quite fine with that. I'd rather put all my energy and effort at the second or the third tier. I am from that old school of thought where, the captain should be the leader, and he should be given, some help, but the team shouldn't be spoiled, and, that the dressing room shouldn't look like a bazaar, where there are 30 coaches just waiting for you to pounce on you if you fail. So I'm quite happy to just let them be, and let them grow on their own rather than being spoon-fed all the time. I'm going to change the mechanics of coaching. I'm not going to hire anyone.
Just moving on to the potential Women's Pakistan Super League in the near future. And this will be wonderful, as you'd be the first country in Asia to have a women's T20 league. Are there any plans to bring this into fruition in the near future?
100%, yes. I've asked my team to prepare a paper. You see, what is happening is that we don't have a pathway for women's cricket. So it's like, you have these colleges and schools where they play cricket, but it's just not been happening regularly. So we try to create pathway of these young women coming through. Right now, if you come to the PCB headquarters outdoors, there are massive posters of the women team. And I came to know more about the value of the women when Pakistan played superbly during this T20 World Cup, because it was 50-50. There were little girls chanting for Pakistan team to do well. And so I just want to milk that feel-good factor that this team has created and create properties for Pakistan also. Right now, we are far too dependent on ICC funding, and I want to move away from that model. And I can only do that if I create new properties. So what is happening is that we'll be the first team, I'm sure, to have an age cricket PSL. So it's going to be PSL Junior, which will be launched in October. The under-19s of Australia and England, will be playing in Pakistan. And I'd be quite happy giving a dugout to somebody like Ricky Ponting or a Viv Richards. So let them be in company of the greats and let them earn money and let them feel confident, because what is happening right now in Pakistan age cricket is that there is talent, but there is this lack of confidence.
Yes, well, get Shaheen to go up and talk to them all. I mean, he's going sensationally. And boy, has he got some attitude.
Wow, absolutely. So, this is quite crazy, actually. So Babar Azam was here with the chief selector just before going to the World Cup. And I said, what are your plans against India? He says, I've got plans. We employ crickways, they do the matchups and all that kind of stuff. I said, I understand, but, India may use crickways also. So what happens? They'll have, a ploy set up against you. So, that becomes nothing for us. So I said, I can tell you right now how to get rid of Rohit Sharma. He says, tell me. I said, you get Shaheen Afridi bowling at 100 miles an hour, get a man at short leg and a 45, bowl that in-swinging Yorker, full pitched, 100 miles an hour. Don't give him a single. Keep him on strike until you get him out, because that ball is going to swing for an over or two. KL Rahul, in-swing, good length delivery. Rohit Sharma, full pitched, in-swing, that can do the job. And then KL Rahul may struggle against left arm angle also. So, I mean, it's quite superb how these matchups are done. So, even though I come from old school of thought, but, some of these technology stuff is quite amazing, actually. So, it's much easier for the captain also to have a plan A and plan B and plan C. So they know exactly at what time should an Haris Rauf spell begin. But at the end of the day, it's the gut feeling also. And I'm a big believer of gut feeling. I mean, this cricket is why, because we all have gut feeling. Thank God for that.
You want to be a part of the ICC working group appointed by the game's governing body to review the status of cricket in Afghanistan. You've been mentioning how emotional this part of the world is. So in light of the recent political situation in that country, what can you tell us about the developments about your working group in the ICC?
So we had a meeting. It was decided in unison that Afghanistan cricket talent shouldn't be hurt at all, because they've got some fabulous players. So all their funding will continue, albeit, there'll be more eyes watching them, how they spend that money. But the cricket has to grow in Afghanistan.
What will happen, Ramiz, if women's cricket evidently doesn't pick up? Because I understand that as yet, the Afghan board are saying, well, we haven't said women's cricket has stopped, but what if the status quo just continues? Like, how long do you leave that for? 3 months, 6 months?
It's difficult really to predict. We're giving them time. Let's not jump the gun. They're in a difficult situation. So there's this cultural war, and then there's the cricketing thing. who is in charge, how long will the world come to realize that things are working in the right direction. Wait and watch is the policy of the world, and wait and watch is the policy right now of the ICC as well.
Is their test status potentially still sort of on the table if at some point it becomes apparent that women's cricket is not to be supported? Because that's the ICC constitution, isn't it, in order to have test status? And I know Jeff Allardyce was saying that members, how they react with their bilateral arrangements is up to them. And Australia's men obviously Cricket Australia pulled them out of their test match. But as you were saying earlier, the ICC needs to be emotionally invested in their members. Yeah. And for test status, that means supporting women's cricket as well.
It's a tough one for Afghanistan to answer right now. And that's why I say you've got to invest in the emotional aspect of a cricketing nation. And you've got to understand the culture also. The men's team would be asking that we have done nothing wrong. Why are we being reprimanded, or why are our rights not being regarded? Why should we be penalized? And then there's the collective picture. The collective canvas says that, look, one part of the painting is very colorful, but the other couple of parts are still bland and still not colorful enough for us to recognize this as a masterpiece. We've just had one session. Obviously, pressure will be put on Afghanistan. I'm sure they'll have to decide in the next 6 months, how they deal with ICC and the expectations.
Best of luck with the role going forwards. Yeah, let's hope that teams do get back out touring Pakistan. But thank you so much. Really appreciate your time on Stumped.
Thank you so much. Thank you all. Thank you. Cheers.
Well, that is Ramiz Raja, chair of the Pakistan Cricket Board, and plenty going on, certainly, in his new role now, that is for sure. Well, that was all we've got time for here on Stumped on All India Radio. Don't forget you can follow us on Twitter. We're at BBCWS Sports. Use the hashtag BBC Stumped. And you can find us on YouTube as well. Go to BBC World Service YouTube. And my thanks to Charu Sharma, Jim Maxwell, and of course to you all for listening. Make sure you join us again next week. Until then, bye-bye.
Stumped is a BBC sport production for the BBC World Service in association with the Australian Broadcasting Corporation and All India Radio.